Welcome again to our Stream Masters class. This is our monthly master class that we host, Retro Recap and myself, to grow together and to share things that have helped us grow and to continue supporting the community. It's so interesting how we always connect on what we're going to be talking about. So I'm going to share a lot more. Y'all know Retro talks about a lot of the streaming psychology and also the mechanics and the actual what are the things to do when it comes to streaming. And then I get into a lot of the energetics, a lot of the holistic, what our mindset is doing, how we're thinking and feeling, and how we're showing up, because that's a big part of what we do as creators and the work that we put into whatever our creative endeavors are. As Retro also said earlier, this is not just for streamers, although it is called Stream Masters. It's for all kinds of creative entrepreneurs and creative people who are looking to do something on their own terms and using their own gifts to do so. I'm one of those people that if I don't have a purpose, I won't get on. Like how Retro was saying how he can get on and if he doesn't have a purpose, he can wing it. I'm not one of those people. I will tend to only get on when I have something to say and when I know I have something to say. And part of how I know that so well and why I'm so comfortable doing that now and comfortable releasing pressure to just like get on and feed the algorithm, because we don't do that, is because I've gotten to know myself so much better. And that starts with a lot of doing inner work, that self-reflection, that deep sitting with ourselves that supports us to know ourselves better. So today I'm going to talk about 3 ways for building from the inside out that also supports building our streams, our businesses, our creative endeavors, and whatever it is that we have going on. So, the first thing that we need is inner clarity. We need to be able to hear our own inner voice. Some people call that your gut, some people call it intuition, inner voice, conscience, whatever word it is that you use, but you know what it is. We need to be able to hear that. We live in a world that bombards us with distractions, and we also live in a society that conditions us to externalize accountability, externalize responsibility, and look to other things, other people, institutions, whatever it may be, to solve our problems. So, when we are able to connect back to our inner voice and trust that, we can have more alignment in the directions that we're going in. So, how do we do that? We got to be okay with separating from distractions. And from that perspective, we got to know what the distractions are, and we all have different distractions. So we have to be okay with separating from those, separating from sometimes it's people, sometimes it's the crowd, sometimes it's just having a whole lot of things going on. We have to be okay with separating from those things so we can tune in to our inner voice for guidance and direction. So, crowds are fun. Building community is great. And ultimately, that's why we're here. We're all here because we are a community, and we're also here to be our own center of gravity, not just be contributing to other people's communities, right? So, we're here to be our own planet in this universal humanity that brings others into our orbit. That's why we came together to talk about this, because we want to know how we can improve, how we can learn to get better at doing our own thing. So, in order to do that at a high level, at your best potential, you got to spend time on your own. You're going to see things that inspire you from other people. Like Retro said earlier, if you're a beginner and you're just starting out, or even if you're not a beginner, you want to see things that people do, you're going to like it. And a lot of times, you're going to be doing the things that a lot of people do because you're new. When I first got on Switch, I wasn't a streamer. I was just a viewer. But I noticed that a lot of people in their bio said that they were a variety streamer. And I heard it so much. I just thought that that was a big part of Twitch culture. And that's just the thing that you're supposed to say when you do more than one thing. When you're like a multi passionate or a multi talented streamer, you might stream more than one game in different categories. So everybody's saying I'm a variety streamer. But what happens when everyone says that? All the variety gets swallowed up. So there really is no variety anymore. It's just all the same thing. So in order to cut all of that noise out, because it's always around us, you got to spend time with yourself. You do that to maintain clarity and get comfortable with yourself and get comfortable with having that alone time for self-reflection and for internal alignment. So today, y'all, I was so inspired early this rising. I have a brand new idea for how I can show up in my content, and it answers a question that I have had for a long time. I have been grappling with this question for so long. How do I bridge all my talents and all my interests as someone who's multi passionate about different things and multi talented in different areas, who wants their work to come across as cohesive and not random? I don't want my work to come across as all over the place. I need there to be some kind of cohesive bridge because it also helps with me and my own organization. I don't want to feel scattered. So I shared the idea with Juice. Okay, he's in the chat. And he said, yes, like that is really perfect. That's a really good idea for you. And as we were talking about it, he then asked me, well, how do you make sure that people know who created something first? Like, how do you make sure you know who is the first one to do something? What if others see it and they copy it? And I told him, well, that's something I had to expect. And that's something, y'all, honestly, that used to bother me. Really bother me. People blatantly taking other people's content ideas, especially when they don't credit them. Thinking about it, that might be why he asked me that. I don't know. You could put it in the chat, Juice. Is that why you asked me that? Ultimately, me not liking that presented a barrier to me fully showing up and putting my stuff out there in a way that I really desire to. I had to take some steps. I had to first get clear on who I am. Okay? Who am I? I'm a visionary. I'm an architect. I build things. And when you build things that are good, people want to be a part of it. Sometimes people want to have it for themselves. And they sometimes go as far as to adapt it for themselves. Let's just say adapt. That's the nature of content creation nowadays. For real, for real. And as I'm creating content to market my brand, to market my business, right? I have to account for the fact that there's going to be other people out there who are going to be looking at their competition. They're going to find my page. They're going to find this particular content series. They probably going to like it because it's all that. They're going to study it. They may be even engage with it. They might, comment. They might even, click some of my links and see what's going on with it in order to ultimately adapt it for themselves. And if they do, so be it. That's cool because they aren't me. Therefore, they can't execute it like I can, even if they do the exact same thing they see me doing on the screen. It took a lot of time for me to get to this place within myself that I could say that, to get to that point of self knowing where I can like really feel like actually it's okay. I know who I am as a creator, as an architect, as a builder. People are going to be attracted to the things that I build, right? So they can see how they can build it for themselves. And that's the nature of it. That's how we all become good. Every idea that we see here, every idea that we're executing, a lot of them, y'all, is just an improvement on a previously existing idea, right? We're always looking at something, becoming inspired by it, and then seeing, like, how could I do something like that? But that's the key. Like, how could I do something like that? Not like, how could I do it just like them, right? Or how could I do that? How could I do this like they do it? No. How can I do it in my way? So we become really good at knowing what our way is when we can spend that intentional time with ourselves. Because that's a good thing when people are actually doing it for themselves from their own place of deep self knowing because they know who they are. I have been really resistant to putting dance content online because right now dance content all looks a certain way. Y'all know how it is. Y'all know what the dance challenge vibe is like. You know what I'm saying? Some of you may know, some of you may not. I took a long break from social media. I took a long break and I'm still kind of easing myself back into it because I just had to get rid of all of that and just say, like, how do I want to do it? How am I going to do it? Right? because I had been resisting it because I'm like, well, I don't want to do it like that. I don't want it to look like that. There was a barrier because like, oh, if it don't look like that, then does it belong there? Of course it does. But I had to get really clear on that within myself first. Spending time alone helped me do that. Other fears that would come up was like, how am I going to reintroduce myself as a dancer? I haven't done dance content online ever, really, because when I was really heavy into dance, online content wasn't even a thing. Showing my age right there. Those were fears I used to entertain that would hold me back, but now now that I know how I'm showing up, even if people try to copy it, they can't copy it because it's my uniqueness. So how did I get from that place to that place from being irritated and how people be swagger jacking content to a place of acceptance of that? Intentional time with myself leads to a deeper self-knowing and self-trust. Can't nobody jack my swag. It's impossible. It's unreplicable. So we get to that place of I can do whatever and I can do it however. So that's our first thing, y'all. Inner clarity. We do that by getting real clear, and sometimes we got to spend time alone. The second thing is priorities over time. We talk a lot about time management, which is great. We don't want to waste time, but I want to invite you today to consider focusing also or focusing more on priority management over time management. Simply because there are some things in our lives that are just like a higher priority that we don't spend a lot of time on, but we do spend more time and energy on things that are low priority. If you have a job right now that's unrelated to the dream job that you desire and the life that you desire for yourself, right? Like when I was in the school district doing something that I was really good at, but it really wasn't the thing that lights me on fire. Or like when Retro Recap was working in sales at Comcast, he was doing something that he was really good at, but it really wasn't the thing that light his fire. So when you think about that, it's not really a high priority in the grand scheme of things. Well, I mean, I guess it's a high priority when it comes to paying bills and stuff, but in the grand scheme of like my life, that's not a priority. But I'm spending a lot of time on that, right? If I have to go to work every day. Similarly, right? If we spend a lot of time consuming content instead of making our own, and I was so guilty of this, not making time for the goals that we say are a priority. So we should put more time and energy into our own creation than the consumption of what others are creating. So you get a chance to think about that. This is the fun part. You get a chance to decide. You get a chance to decide. You get a chance to decide what are your priorities. And don't be afraid to get real serious with yourself about your whole self and all of your priorities. Priorities about your health, your body, your weight, what you want your hair to be like. Real talk, real serious. Get real serious with yourself. Your priorities about your relationship with friends, family, or love life. How much time do you want to spend on that stuff, if any at all? If you don't want to spend any time on it, but you have been spending time on it, that's an energy drain, which is a time drain, which is going to start to leak into what you're building and creating. Okay? What are your priorities for your career advancement or for building your business or your creative endeavor, your stream? Priorities about caring for your home or your car or the sports that you play or the clubs that you're in or the hobbies that you have. You get to decide all of that stuff for your life. Our priorities can be the same things that we do every day, but they might not be. So pay attention to that. Sometimes we're conditioned to believe things are a priority to us or they should be a priority to us. But when we really think deep down, like if we got real honest with ourselves, like only told ourselves this, if we had a choice, some of those things probably wouldn't be a priority. So you get to take some time to decide that for yourself. When you spend time with yourself and think deeply on those things, write them down. And I'm gonna share a resource with you to help you, document it and keep track of it too. But writing it down helps you see exactly what's important in your life, and it gives you a clue on where you should be planning to spend more of your time so that you can manage your time better. So it's the priority first, and then the time you put into it, as opposed to starting with time and then trying to plug the priorities in there and then being like, oh, I don't have enough time to do this. You would if you managed it with priority first. The third way that we're talking about building from the inside out, family, is to document the journey. Document it. I used to just blanket this and say, like, just journal what's going on. But when I think down real deep into it, there's more to it than that. It's not just about journaling your thoughts or your feelings, what happened today, or the processes you're going through, or what's frustrating you, your wins, all that. And, it's also your ideas. It's the things that come up for you randomly, things that come up in conversations, things that make you feel inspired when you see them, or hear them, or feel them, or even smell them. Find a way to document these things in a way that's organized. I should be clear. This is about organized documentation, not just for the sake of like writing things down, but writing down, like having a record of these things to be able to go back to. Why? Because you don't want to lose the ideas. You don't want to lose the progress. You don't want to lose those things that came up only within you, right? In a certain way that could be important for something that you are creating. Because sometimes some ideas are for you to act on in that moment, and some may not be. Sometimes it could be an issue of timing, your timing, or the timing of the idea itself. Like maybe the world isn't ready yet. Yes, there is a such thing as being ahead of your time. Trust yourself. Sometimes there might be ideas that you have, but you have an idea or you got inspired by something, but you only really got one piece of the puzzle. And it is up to you to get to a certain place in your life, in your journey, to make another realization that gives you that light bulb that says, oh, okay, like me today, when I got that divine spark of inspiration that answered a question that I've had for such a long time. Why didn't that answer come to me yesterday? Why didn't the answer come to me last week or last month? Why? Right? Okay, so you got to trust your timing. So that's why we write things down too, so we don't forget them. But it don't have to be writing, okay? It could be voice notes. It could be, you could text it or type it to yourself if you could make a video note or a vlog or something like that. But trust your timing. You could be having one piece of the puzzle, then there could be someone else in the universe who has a different piece and y'all haven't met yet. Trust your timing. Trust the process. Trusting your inner voice is so important for this, okay? When you do this, you start to understand how your inspiration and your creativity works. And this is what helps you get even deeper into the flow of how you work and how you create. So you get to know how you can trust your inner voice more, which is your intuition, your inner guidance system. How you can trust your cycles of work and rest, okay? How you can trust your cycles of planning and execution. All right, because it's all about cycles, right? We're not always in the grind time. Sometimes we're in grind time and giving time. Sometimes we're in rest and receiving and celebration, right? And you get to know this. You get to know this so deeply about yourself. Isn't that amazing? And you can use that information to help you create whatever it is that you came here to create, okay? We do this work internally, y'all, because all the answers that we need are within us. They're within us, and the more that we do that inner work, however your inner work looks for you, whether it's a meditation life, a prayer life, whatever that looks like for you, it doesn't need to look like the same thing for everybody. But you might want to have one, because that's the thing that we anchor into, that gives us that spark, that inspiration, and that inner guidance. We just need to be willing to do the work to tune and tap into it. So that's what I have to share today. I appreciate y'all listening.